Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, brought to you by BetDSI, and I'm your host, Mitchell Renz. Please give me a follow on Twitter at MitchellRenz365 for all your latest Raiders news and rumors. First news bit I got coming up here on the board, I'm going to give a little bit of congratulations to Derek Carr. Why am I giving congratulations to Carr? Carr's been playing really well, and he had a great game this past week against the Kansas City Chiefs, but he also did two amazing things. First, he had the second most pass completions in his first 5 years with 1,670, only behind Peyton Manning, who will be in the Hall of Fame. And then he's got the second most passing yards in Raiders history behind only Ken Stabler. But let's look at Derek Carr's Week 13 stats against the Chiefs. 29 of 38, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He hasn't thrown an interception since Week 5. He's been an absolute, I think, very reliable quarterback in terms of reliability the last few weeks, and he's been a big part of the reason why, heck, the Raiders even stayed in that game against the Chiefs. But I said he is now second all-time in passing yards in Raiders history, which is pretty amazing considering, again, it's only his 5th year. But he's behind Ken Stabler there, 19,078. Derek Carr then 17,802. Rich Gannon, Daryl LaMonica. So, Raider Nation, I want to know from you, who is the Raiders' greatest quarterback ever? I'm not going to say Derek because, well, he hasn't played the longevity. I'm probably still going to go with Ken Stabler because you guys are always hitting me up in my comments saying, Mitch, it's Ken. But I still ultimately want to know from you, so please comment below. Who is the Raiders' greatest quarterback ever? Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and I'm your host, Mitchell Renz. I'm pumping out a whole bunch of new content that you can only see in one spot. Guess where it is? It's right down here at that link below, youtube.com/Raiders Report. Tell all your Raiders fans, heck, tell the family, tell that random homeless guy that hits you up every day. Tell him, youtube.com/Raiders Report. Next news bit coming up here. It's Jared Cook, and I think Jared Cook deserves a little bit more love because he is setting career highs left and right, and I love seeing this because Jared Cook has just been an absolute monster this year for the Oakland Raiders. So he set a career high in yards and touchdowns this past week against the Chiefs. He finally eclipsed the 700-yard mark, and he finally eclipsed his 6 touchdowns for his career. So this past week against the Chiefs, 8 targets, 7 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown, and was just, you could definitely tell he's been the go-to guy for Carr all season long, especially when you're considering he leads the team in targets with 78, 54 catches. He's on pace right now to lead the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. He's been just the absolute go-to guy for Derek Carr all season long. So, I want to know from you, should Jared Cook make the Pro Bowl? I want you to type Y for yes or type N for no. I'm typing my Y for yes, and it's easy for me. Jared Cook has been a top 5 tight end in fantasy football, real-life football. It didn't matter that the Raiders are 2-10 this year. Jared Cook, you deserve to go to the Pro Bowl. You're getting my vote there, so I'm typing Y for yes. Last news bit coming up here. The Oakland Raiders have officially been eliminated from the playoffs, and you guys are like, yeah, Mitch, no shit. Well, it's actually official now. So, with the 40-33 loss to the Chiefs this past week, the Raiders have officially been eliminated from the playoffs. They are the only team in the AFC to be eliminated, but I'm sure there's going to be a few more teams that be joining them. And the last time that the Raiders made the playoffs was 2016. I said last week on the Raiders Report that I think the Raiders will make the playoffs in 2020. So, fingers crossed that I got a perfect vision, 2020. Get it? No? Hopefully. Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, brought to you by BetDSI. Remember, facebook.com/JustWin. Raiders Baby is where you can find our show on Facebook. Now, if you're new to the show, you're going to need to understand my Raider rumor scale. 0 Chucky heads, tuck rule, tuck that. This rumor, not going to happen. 1 Chucky head is a small shred of truth. I like to think 25% chance of happening. 2 Chucky heads, people are talking 50-50. 3 Chucky heads is pretty likely 75% chance of happening. And then 4 Chucky heads, believe it, baby. 100% this rumor is going to happen. First rumor up here on the board. The Raiders have the number 2 pick in the NFL draft right now. This one's 4 Chucky heads, believe it, baby. Because guess what? They do. With the Cardinals ended up beating the Packers 20-17 this past week, the Oakland Raiders were able to move up from 3 to 2. Now, they are currently only behind the 49ers, who do hold the number 1 pick. And if you look down there at the very bottom, the 49ers weeks 14-17, it's not really easy. It's the Broncos, it's the Seahawks, it's the Bears, it's the Rams. That's a pretty tough schedule. I want the 49ers to be able to pull one out, but I just don't quite know. So, right here's the 2019 NFL draft order if it started today. The 49ers, first overall pick, sitting there at 2-10. The Raiders also at 2-10. Then it's Cardinals at 4, Lions at 5, and then the Jets are sitting there at 3. So, will the Raiders have the number 1 pick in the 2019 draft? I want you to say yes or no. Give me a heart. Give me a thumbs up. Will the Raiders have the number 1 pick in the 2019 draft? I'm hoping, because I really want me some Nick Bosa on the football field, not in any other sexual way. All right, next rumor coming up here on the board. We drafted Clelin, Ferrell. This is a rumor coming out from Fansided, and it's been Ferrell, it's Ferrell, where there's a bunch of different pronunciations. I'm giving this one 2 Chucky heads, and people are talking. The Raiders have literally no pass rush this season. We all know that. And Ferrell is one of the best edge rushers in college football. He and the rest of the elite defensive line at Clemson is the reason they're headed to their 3rd consecutive college football playoff. And with the Raiders, he would literally just be a great force in the middle with Art and Keeb to give the Raiders a solid young tandem at defensive end position for multiple years to come. So, if he's on the board, would you draft him? Or potentially are we going to draft somebody else? Now, who should the Raiders draft 2nd overall? If Nick Bosa is sitting there, I'm literally going to run up to the stage and grab Bosa with my arms and say, hey man, you coming to the Raider Nation. But if he's not there, I want to know, who should the Raiders draft number 2 overall? I'm going to be watching the Raiders all next year because I am hoping it's going to be a lot better this year. And there's only one place to do if you want to bet on Raiders games. It's at BetDSI. You're going to go to chatsports.com/bet. Remember to use that promo code LIVE120 for a 120% deposit bonus. Mitch, what does that mean? You put down $100, you get $120 for free. If you're a big baller, put down $500, get $600 for free. Shout out to BetDSI for hooking us up with the best promo code on the internet. Next rumor coming up here on the board. Jon Gruden doesn't know the rules, and this one's kind of funny. I am poking a little bit of fun at Jon Gruden. I'm going to give this one 1 Chucky head, and I think there's a small shred of truth in. Now, I think Jon Gruden knows the rules of football. When you've been around football as long as he has, I think that you know the rules. But with only 7 seconds remaining in the first half, Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes connected with tight end Travis Kelce for a touchdown. Why is this an issue? Well, it's an issue because Jon Gruden threw a challenge flag, but it was an illegal challenge that cost the Raiders a timeout because there was less than 2 minutes in the half. You can't throw a challenge flag with less than 2 minutes in the half. I don't know how many people knew that. But when you look at just overall Jon Gruden's entire coaching career, he's been in the league for 12 years, 97 and 91. He does have a Super Bowl ring. So I think Jon Gruden knows the rules. Maybe he was just having a little bit of a brain fart. I think we all have a brain fart here and there. No? Okay. Next rumor coming up here on the board, Karl Joseph. Is he a keeper? And what do I mean by this? Well, he hasn't quite been, I think, everything that the Raiders were hoping for when they drafted him at 2016 in the first round. So, I'm going to give this one 2 Chucky heads, and I think people are talking, and people who are talking are The Athletic. The Athletic came out and said that the Raiders are potentially thinking about keeping Karl Joseph, and there's been rumors that he's going to get cut because he just hasn't quite lived up to his expectations. But when you just look at Karl Joseph's, I'll say, work just the last few weeks, he's been playing a lot better. He's finally been making more tackles. He's been better in coverage. Now, in 2019, his base salary is $2 million, but if the Raiders cut him, it will still be a $3.7 million against the cap. So, I want to know from you, should the Raiders keep Karl Joseph next year? I want you to type K for keep or type C for cut. Okay, Raider Nation, simple enough. Next rumor coming up here on the board, Devin Funchess is going to be a Raider in 2019. If you don't know who Devin Funchess is, probably a good thing, because I don't think he's very good. So I'm giving this one only 1 Chucky head, and I think there's a small shred of truth, because I guess I just don't want Devin Funchess in a Raiders uniform. I think he might say that he's a wide receiver, but I think he's a glorified tight end. Now, he has had 4 years of NFL experience, and he is only 24 years old, which I do like to see. 6'4", 225, and he could be a big red zone target for the Oakland Raiders. But he just, I don't really think is all that special. Here are his season stats. 71 targets, 42 catches, 526 yards, and 4 touchdowns. It's okay, but considering the fact, I think, of when you look at Funchess at 6'4", 225, the dude runs like Antonio Gates. And, not the good Antonio Gates. 39 years old Antonio Gates. So, I don't want Devin. That's why I gave it 1 Chucky head. So, I got a little bit of trivia for you, though. Let's see how smart you are, and maybe let's see how much chat sports stuff you watch. Where did Devin Funchess go to college? I want you to comment below, or you can DM me on Twitter at MitchellRenz365. since I said Devin Funchess doesn't look good, we should probably get him some Mizzen and Main because I think I look pretty good at Mizzen and Main. And if you guys want to wear some Mizzen, go to comfortable.af. And Mitch, why is it comfortable.af? Because these shirts are indeed comfortable as F. Last rumor coming up here on the board is around probably the biggest free agent this offseason. It's Le'Veon Bell. And is he going to be an Oakland Raider in 2019? Dramatic pause. I'm going to give this one Chucky head, and I think that this is a small shred of truth. Now, he does have the highest odds to sign with the Oakland Raiders, according to BetDSI. And he did skip his 2018 season because he wants a large contract. And even though he's going to be the best free agent to some this offseason, I still don't know if the Raiders should ultimately go out and get him. Now, Clutch Points did come out and say that, hey, he could potentially be like a perfect fit for the Raiders, and BetDSI agrees. So you can see up here on the board, he has the highest odds to sign with the Raiders at plus 300, according to BetDSI. And then it's the Eagles at plus 400, the Packers at 650, the Colts at 750. He's actually already tweeted to the Colts a pretty interesting picture of him wearing some Colts gear. So maybe that's where I would put my money. And then also the Houston Texans at plus 1,000. But Lamar Miller has actually looked pretty good these last few weeks. So I said that he wants to be paid. And that's my biggest issue. I don't know if Gruden's going to put all that money into Le'Veon Bell because he wants to be paid like the top two guys on this list, Todd Gurley and David Johnson. And I think Le'Veon Bell is an unbelievably talented running back, but James Conner has literally just stepped right on in and been just as productive. He scored more touchdowns this past year, and I think Le'Veon is a good running back, but let's give a little bit more credit to Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and that awesome offensive line. So I want to know from you, would you want the Raiders to sign Le'Veon Bell? Give me a wow face for yes, give me a laughing face for no, or just comment below, yes or no. The Raiders didn't use Amari Cooper right. I'm going to give this one 2 Chucky heads, and people are talking. The person that's talking is Amari Cooper. Now, first, let's remember that Amari Cooper was traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a 2019 first-round pick. He struggled with the Raiders this season and last season, despite having 2 very good 2 opening years with the Raiders. Now, since he's gone to the Cowboys, he's been playing much better. This is what Amari had to say about his use in Oakland. I wasn't really happy in Oakland or anything like that. The Raiders basically said we couldn't get a guy who's going to contribute better than he will in the first round, and I didn't know how to feel about that. I just always felt like I wasn't really being used how I felt like I would have used me if I was the coach. So I looked at it from the perspective, not from the perspective that, oh, they don't think that I'm good enough or I'm not good enough. So here are Amari Cooper's stats since the trade, and Amari's been a lot better with the Cowboys. Like, let's just face the facts. In 5 games, 30 catches, 424 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Amari's been better with the Cowboys. So I can understand Amari being upset, and also I can understand it from an athletic perspective and just a personal level. You're playing better. Talk about it. It's all good, Amari. So I want to know from you, did the Raiders use Amari Cooper right? Type Y for yes or N for no. I've seen what Amari Cooper could be. We've seen 70 catches and 1,000 yards his first 2 seasons. Only 3 receivers in NFL history have ever done that, and Amari's one of them. And over the last 2 years, that's not what Amari's been for the Raiders, and he's playing much better for the Cowboys. So, did the Raiders use Amari Cooper right? Y for yes or N for no. Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, brought to you by BetDSI, and I'm your host, Mitchell Renz. Please follow me on Twitter, at MitchellRenz365, and remember to subscribe below to youtube.com/Raiders Report if you want to be on the show for my Raider Nation rumors. If you're new to the show, you need to understand my Raider rumor scale. 0 Chucky heads, tuck rule, tuck that, rumor, not going to happen. 1 Chucky head is a small shred of truth. I like to think 25% chance of happening. 2 Chucky heads, people are talking 50-50. 3 Chucky heads, pretty likely. This rumor is 75% chance going to happen. And then 4 Chucky heads, believe it, baby. 100% this rumor is gonna happen. Next rumor coming up here on the board is Amari Cooper a sissy. Yeah, that's the actual title. And this one's 2 Chucky heads, people are talking. Who's talking? Well, if you can look down there, Phil Filippiano, who used to play for the Raiders, and we know Amari has been much better for the Cowboys, and he said that his struggles were due to Oakland, and Filippiano ripped Amari and was not happy. This is what he had to say about it. That punk talking, that is a little sissy. If I was still playing and we were playing Dallas next year, that guy would have been a problem coming over the middle. He couldn't. Jack Tatum, myself, and Jordan Atkinson would have annihilated the guy talking like that. I wanted Cooper off the team last year. He couldn't catch the ball on 3rd down. I thought it was a great move when Gruden got rid of him this year because he didn't perform for the Raiders. Not being used properly, your job is to catch the ball. Catch the ball, jerk. NFL football is black and white. You don't do your job, you're out of here. And that's why Gruden traded him, I think. Those are some harsh words and some harsh quotes from Phil. But at the end of the day, if you're going to rip my team and you're going to rip on anybody, like, I can understand Phil taking his side, but I can also understand Amari taking his side. So, whose side are you on? I want you to type A for Amari or type P for Phil. I can't wait to see the results from this one. Next rumor coming up here on the board, James Conner is out week 14. James Conner is the running back for the Steelers, and the the Raiders are playing the Steelers this week. This one's for Chucky heads. Believe it, baby. So James Conner left week 13 versus the Chargers with an ankle injury late in the fourth quarter, and he's already been ruled out for week 14. Now look for Jalen Samuels to be the running back to take over for Conner, because the Steelers normally don't go with a running back by committee. Now, we might see another running back here and there, but Jalen Samuels is going to be the main option to take over for Conner. So what exactly are the Steelers missing in Conner? Conner stepped in for Le'Veon Bell, and Conner's been absolutely incredible this year. 201 carries, 909 yards on the ground, but also 52 catches for 467 yards receiving. He also has 12 rushing touchdowns. It's going to be a huge loss for the Steelers' offense. Now, the Steelers still have plenty of firepower on offense, but losing James Conner is going to be a big loss. So I want to know from you. I got a little question. Over under 153 rushing yards for the Steelers in week 14. Why is it 153? The Raiders give up 153 rushing yards per game. So I want to know from you. Over or under? Type O or type U. I'm going to be watching this game. There's no doubt about it. And I'm also going to be betting on it as well. And there's only one place to do that. It's at BetDSI. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Remember to use that promo code for a 120% deposit bonus. It's live 120. Live 120. Live 120. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Shout out to BetDSI for hooking us up with the best promo code on the internet. Next rumor coming up here on the board. Carr, is he returning to 2016 form? I originally saw this and I thought, like, all right, I'm not really a nerd here, but when, like, people, like, return to form like Super Saiyan, it's something like that, Dragon Ball Z, that's what I thought of. I know, kind of nerdy, but I'm giving this one only one Chucky head, and I think it's a small shred of truth. Carr's been playing much better. He played great against the Chiefs. He threw for 285 yards, 3 touchdowns, played much better. And he hasn't thrown an interception since week 5. And in his last 6 weeks, he's got 103.3 QBR, which is actually top 6 in the NFL, which is pretty impressive. Despite the Raiders losing, though, he's been better. Okay, he's been better. But returning to 2016 form, that might be a little bit of a stretch. So his completion percentage is better this year compared to 2016. 3,987 yards, but 28 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. When you watched Carr in 2016, yeah, he didn't light up the stat sheet in terms of yards, but he was always in control of every single game. Now, why is this even a rumor? Because, like I said before, he's been playing a lot better. And since week 4, 68% completion percentage, 1,739 yards, 10 touchdowns, and only 1 pick. We rip on Carr all the time for throwing interceptions or forcing turnovers, but since week 4, Carr's been taking care of the ball, and those are the stats to prove it. So I want to know from you. Is Derek Carr returning to 2016 form? I want you to type 1 for yes or type 2 for no. Next rumor coming up here on the board, Martavis Bryant. Is he done for the entire season? He's been dealing with some injuries. There's been some talk recently with Gruden. I'm going to give this one 2 Chucky heads, and people are talking. So Bryant left week 10 versus the Chargers with a PCL injury, and I actually came on the Raiders report before and said 3 Chucky heads that Martavis is going to be out for the year. Well, it looks like he's returning a little bit better. It doesn't look like the PCL was in a complete tear. It was only a minor tear, so therefore Martavis might actually be able to return. Now, I don't think he's going to come back week 14, but it's looking like he might be able to come back 15 or 16. But when asked about it, John Gruden said, I literally have no idea when Martavis is going to come back. And this year, he's been pretty good, I'll say, in terms of stretching the field out, but only 19 catches, 266 yards, and no touchdowns. Gruden wants him back on the field. He said he's got a bunch of plays for Martavis, and he even called him his White Tiger. So, with Martavis' nickname being the White Tiger, I thought this would be a fun little question. What's your nickname? I want you guys to comment below and also DM me on Twitter at MitchellRens365. Best nickname gets a retweet from my personal account. What's your nickname? Comment below. White Tiger is an interesting nickname, and I think I look pretty good if my nickname was White Tiger, and I'm looking good in this Miz in a Main shirt. Go to www.comfortable.af to wear one of these Miz in a Main shirts with sweat wicking technology, and also they're super flexible, and believe me, I'm not going to do another jumping jack, I promise you. And if you want one of these bad boys, go to www.comfortable.af. Next rumor, last rumor, is around Gareon Conley, and is he playing elite football? Yeah, I said the word elite. I'm also giving this one 4 Chucky heads, believe it, baby, because Gareon Conley deserves some respect. Now, I've come on here this show before, and I've ripped Gareon Conley because he's a first-round pick who just hasn't played very well in the past. And since his Week 6 benching versus the Seahawks, Conley showed up. He's played a lot better. For the entire season, he ranked 6th according to PFF in passer rating against. Gareon Conley has been much better. In the Raiders' last 3 weeks, Conley has allowed 15 yards and an average 8.3 passer rating in coverage. Both league lows among cornerbacks with 50-plus coverage snaps. Conley's been playing a lot better. He's got 2 interceptions. He's got a touchdown. Gareon, I'm giving you some respect, dude. Keep it going. Maybe you're actually worth that first-round pick. So, if Gareon continues to play well, there's a reason why he was drafted high, maybe to eventually make a Pro Bowl. So I want to know from you, will Gareon Conley ever make a Pro Bowl? Type Y for yes or type N for no. I got 5 free agents that the Raiders could look to sign in 2019. Now, there is no particular, ranking for them. It's just 5 players who I think that could make an initial impact right away for the Raiders in 2019 who, let's all face it, definitely needed a lot of help in 2019. First guy coming up here on the board, it's Bryce Callahan. And I like Bryce a lot, especially when, he's been pretty solid this year for the Bears, but the Raiders are in need of help all over the secondary. Gareon Conley and Karl have been playing well down the stretch, but everywhere else can be improved. Bryce Callahan has had a breakout season for the Chicago Bears, ranking in the top 10 amongst cornerbacks according to Pro Football Focus. With how much the teams are running 11 personnel, if you don't know what 11 personnel is, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back, slot corners have become one of the most critical positions in football. The Raiders will likely select another outside corner during the draft, but Callahan brings the ability in the slot the Raiders have not had for a while. He's also not a household name, so the Raiders may be able to get him for a lot cheaper. And as you can see here on his stats, he's played all 12 games. He's been reliable for the Bears. 6 pass breakups to 2 picks, 43 tackles. I think this kid's going to be pretty good down the stretch. Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, brought to you by BetDSI, and I'm your host, Mitchell Renz. Please follow me on Twitter, at MitchellRenz365, and remember to subscribe to youtube.com/Raiders Report, where I'm pumping out a whole bunch of new content, and if you want to be on the show, like Raider Nation Rumors, subscribe below, youtube.com/Raiders Report. Next player that the Raiders could look at in 2019 free agency, now this guy is a big name, a big household name. The Raiders lack attitude and toughness on the defensive side of the ball, and safety Landon Collins lacks in neither. After a rough rookie year, Collins is in the midst of his 3rd straight very good season, showing the ability to come up and make plays at the line of scrimmage while also being able to hold his own in coverage. Collins is the total package at the safety position. The New York Giants do not figure to be in the playoff team anytime soon, especially with the issues that they're having at quarterback. Heck, maybe they should play Odell Beckham at quarterback. And they've had already shown that they're willing to get rid of some of their star cornerstone pieces of their defense. Now, Landon Collins is 96 tackles, super physical, 1 forced fumble. He doesn't have any interceptions, but again, he's a player who's playing in all 12 games, which is something that the Raiders need, especially in that secondary. So, I want to know from you, okay? Would Landon Collins look good in some silver and black? I think I look pretty good in silver, and yeah, my Miz in a Main shirt makes me look pretty good as well. But would Landon Collins look good in silver and black? I want you to type D for duh or type E for ew. I'm typing my D for duh. I think I would love to see Landon Collins in that secondary for the Raiders, but it's going to be a lot of money to get that guy going in there. Speaking of looking good, I mentioned it. I'm wearing Miz in the Main, and you guys can too. Go to www.comfortable.af to get your hands on one of these shirts. I sweat all the time in them, but you can't tell because there's sweat wicking technology. And also, guess what? They're super flexible, stretchable. I could probably do jumping jacks. That was bad. No, I won't do that. But go get yourself here someone. Comfortable.af, Miz in the Main. All right, next free agent in 2019. It could be JADEVEON CLOWNEY. And I talked about JADEVEON CLOWNEY in my Raider Nation rumors, so if you missed that, go back and look on my chances of JADEVEON CLOWNEY ultimately becoming a Raider. Now, one of the most logical free agent signings for the Raiders this offseason could be Clowney because he's just an initial fit. They traded Khalil Mack. I know, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say Khalil Mack, but the Raiders ultimately traded Mack, and Clowney is a freak outside linebacker with great ability to get after the quarterback, and he's only 25 years old, and sure, it's going to be a lot of money. You could be looking at $100 million over 6 years, which is $16.6 million. But maybe they could get him a little bit cheaper because there's no way the Texans are going to be able to re-sign him because they're going to pay J.J. Watt. They're not going to pay JADEVEON Clowney. And when you just look at what he's done this year, in 32 tackles, 7 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and then 1 touchdown. He is an absolute difference maker on defense, and I think he could also add a lot more learning. He could teach a player like Arden Key, right? Arden Key's got all this upside, long and lanky like Clowney. Maybe he could just slide in, and these two could be an absolute wrecking crew for the Raiders for a lot of years to come. So, Clowney to the Raiders. Do you like it? Type L for like, or do you hate it? Type H for hate. I think you're kind of drunk if you don't like JADEVEON Clowney coming to the Raiders. I think it would be an amazing fit. The Raiders have some money. Maybe spending a lot of money on Clowney, not such a bad idea. So for me, I'm typing my L for love, or L for like it. I like it a lot. Next one coming up here, top free agent targets in 2019. C.J. Mosley, another linebacker. So, pass rusher is the Raiders' biggest need right now, definitely in my opinion, but linebacker is a close second. The team doesn't have a quality starter at the position. However, there are several players in free agency and in the draft that should be able to help the Raiders fill this void. One of my favorites is C.J. Mosley of the Baltimore Ravens. Mosley was the 17th pick in the 2014 NFL Draft and has been a star ever since he's entered the league. He's been a second-team All-Pro linebacker 3 times in his career and just keeps improving every season. Mosley will command top dollar in free agency, but he's well worth it. Expect the Raiders to make multiple moves at linebacker this offseason, and I'm really, really hoping C.J. Mosley is one of them. Now, he's played in 11 games. Sure, he doesn't have any sacks, but he's just an absolute tackle monster year in and year out, and he's literally the focal point of one of the best defenses in the NFL. Heck, we just went up against the Ravens 2 weeks ago, and C.J. Mosley, big reason why the Raiders definitely did not put up a lot of points. So, I want to know from you. I talked about some defensive ends. I've talked about corners, safeties, every position. What's the Raiders' biggest need in free agency? Do you want them to go get a big-name linebacker? Maybe a defensive end? Quarterback? I hope not. So, what's the Raiders' biggest need in free agency? I want you guys to comment below. I would definitely appreciate that. If you want to watch some of these big-name players for the Raiders next year, guess what? You're going to bet on it at BetDSI. You're going to go to chatsports.com/bet. You're going to use promo code LIVE120 for a 120% deposit bonus. Mitch, what does that mean? You're going to put down $50, you'll get $60 for free. You put down $100, get $120 for free. If you're a big baller, put down $500, get $600 for free. Okay? Shout out to BetDSI for hooking up Chat Sports with the best promo code on the internet. Next top free agent target in 2019, it's Golden Tate. And I kind of hate that Golden Tate ended up going to the Eagles because it kind of ticks me off. Golden Tate was a super productive wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, and now he's just not a good fit. And I think it's putting a little bit of shame on Golden Tate's name. And when I look at Golden Tate's skill set, I think he would fit really well with the Raiders. And I know I write dink and dunk offense on the screen there, but the Raiders are kind of having a dink and dunk offense, and adding Golden Tate, who is just an absolute monster out of the slot and who's led the NFL the last 2 years in yards after the catch. It won't happen this year, but he has the past 2 years in yards after the catch. Could be a great option for the Raiders to just insert into their starting lineup. Now, he's seen 89 targets, 55 catches, 614 yards and 3 touchdowns, and most of that damage was done before going to the Eagles because he has only had, in 3 games with the Eagles, 97 receiving yards. It's just not a good fit, and I think he sees that he's not a good fit in the Eagles. Maybe he wants to come to Oakland. So, I want to know from you, would Golden Tate be a good fit in the Raiders' offense? Would you type G for good or T for terrible? I'm typing my G for good. I think it would be a great fit. Like, I think if he could work out of the slot, be a reliable option for Derek Carr, then we wouldn't have to rely so much on Jared Cook, who is having a Pro Bowl type season. But adding Golden Tate, who could also help some of these younger receivers, help Derek Carr mature a little bit, I would love it. So I'm typing my G. I think it would be a good fit. Heck, I think it would be a great fit. Golden Tate, if you're watching, come to Oakland. All right, next one. or top free agents targets in 2019 for the Raiders. As I stated before, I got Bryce Callahan, a solid young cornerback from the Bears, who's having a much better season. Then you got Landon Collins, who's an absolute monster as a strong safety for the Giants. There's a reason why he was 2016 All-Pro first team. JADEVEON CLOWNEY, long and lanky, 25 years old, a freak athlete. He would be able to step right in and just be a monster next to Arden Key. CJ Mosley, 77 tackles for the Ravens in 11 games. Sure, 0 sacks, but he could be a captain on that defense. Something much like what Navarro Bowman gave the Raiders, I think CJ Mosley could be. And then Golden Tate, I already basically gave my entire love story for Golden Tate. Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, brought to you by BetDSI, and I'm your host, Mitchell Renz. Please follow me on Twitter at MitchellRenz365 for all the latest Raiders news and rumors. And also, subscribe below to youtube.com/Raiders Report if you want to be on my Raider Nation rumors. Got a big game this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, so let's look ahead to that Week 14 matchup. The Steelers are coming to Oakland. This game is on Sunday at 3:25 p.m. or 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time. That's on my bad. And then the favorite is the Steelers by 10.5 according to BetDSI. The over-under on this game is 51.5 points. And guess what? I'm taking the Raiders to cover, but the over-under, I'm going over. And where am I betting on this game? I'm betting at it at BetDSI. See down there where it says play now at chatsports.com/bet. That's where you got to go. Remember, use that promo code LIVE120 for 120% deposit bonus. Mitch, what does that mean? You put down $50, you're going to get $60 for free. You put down $100, get $120 for free. It's the best promo code on the internet. I bet you can't find a better one. Shout out to BetDSI for hooking us up here at Chat Sports. Now let's look ahead here and look for the Steelers and the Raiders and how they compare on offense, because the Steelers have one of the best offenses in the NFL. Like, let's just be honest here. So the Steelers are sitting there, 413 yards per game, 4th best in the NFL. The Raiders only 22nd best in the NFL, 346. The passing yards, though, man, the Steelers with Big Ben, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, they can beat you in so many different ways, and it's why they're ranked 2nd in the NFL in terms of passing yards. Rushing yards per game, the Raiders actually average more rushing yards per game than the Steelers, which I found actually pretty surprising. The Steelers are 29th in the NFL, and they're going to be without their leading rusher, James Conner. In terms of first downs, the Steelers can have 24 first downs a game, and then the Raiders are averaging only 19. We need to get that one about the same if we're going to have a chance in this one. Time of possession is going to be a big thing, and then just an overall points per game. The Steelers 28.5 or 28.8, and the Raiders at 18.3. Got to be able to keep up with this high-powered Steelers offense. But it's not all about offense. We also got to look at the defensive side of the ball, too. The Raiders, in terms of pass yards allowed per game, 14th in the NFL. But I think that's mainly because teams just run the ball down the Raiders' throats. Ranked 31st in the NFL, 153 yards per game allowed. If you watch my Raiders six-pack of rumors, I said over-under 153 rushing yards for the Steelers in this game. The Steelers, though, in terms of turnovers, both teams have forced 12 turnovers this year, ranked 23rd in the NFL. Sacks. Look at the difference among sacks. The Raiders ranked dead last in the NFL with only 10 sacks this year. Heck, the team that's in 31st place has 19 sacks, and then the Steelers, they're number 1 in the league in sacks, 41 sacks, and then points per game allowed. Steelers are allowing 23.5, 15th. The Raiders are allowing 30.6, which is ranked 31st. Not what you like to see when you're going up against a high-powered Steelers offense. So let's look at some keys to the game if the Raiders are going to win this one. You got to force turnovers, especially when you're looking at Ben Roethlisberger. We need to make him super uncomfortable, because when Ben struggles, the Steelers are going to struggle. Big Ben has 7 interceptions in the 5 losses/ties this season for the Steelers. Big Ben and the Steelers normally play a lot better at home, especially Ben. He's been just notorious his entire career for playing better at home. So let's make Ben feel a little bit uncomfortable. Let's force some turnovers. We need good field position in order to convert some points. So, and then if we can get Ben to force some turnovers, maybe the Raiders can get a lead, and maybe we can force the Steelers into predictable passing situations. If we can at least make them in predictable passing situations, we can at least know what's coming, and maybe we control the big plays. And if we can limit the big plays, like we can't have a 97-yard touchdown from Juju, because as soon as the Steelers start breaking off long plays against the Steelers, I'm telling you right now, this one is over. So we're talking about turnovers. I want to know from you, who will throw more interceptions on Sunday? I want you to type C for Carr or type B for Big Ben Derek Carr, 1 interception since week 4. I'm typing my B for Big Ben. Even though Ben might toss up 500 yards in this game, he's also good for like at least 2 interceptions every single game. But I want to know from you, type C for Carr or type B for Big Ben. Next key to the game is let's keep the stars in check. I've already mentioned Juju. I mentioned Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger. Luckily, James Conner's going to miss this game. I shouldn't say luckily. I don't like to see anybody get hurt. But if we can keep their big stars in check, maybe just keep them under, I don't know, 200 yards receiving between Antonio Brown and Juju, the Raiders might have a real shot. Speaking of 200 yards, over under 200 receiving yards combined for Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. Both receivers are in the top 10 in the NFL in terms of yards, and Antonio Brown, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver in the NFL. And if we can control Juju, and maybe Garyon Conley can limit Antonio Brown, because you don't stop AB, you just limit him. So, over-under. Type O for over or U for under. Next key to the game, controlling the clock. Let's keep that high-powered Steelers offense on the sidelines. Let's keep them off the field, and a great way to do that is going to be with Derek Carr. Derek Carr has been playing much better since week 4. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 285 yards last week. He hasn't thrown an interception, like I said, since week 4, but the QBR has been much better. And since the week 4, like I'm telling you, with the fact that he doesn't turn the ball over, and they're moving it, sure, it's a dink and dunk offense right now. But you know what? A dink and dunk offense is actually racking up time of possession, and that's going to keep the Steelers' offense off the field. And as long as the Steelers' offense is off the field, breaking news, it's hard to score points. So, who's going to win the time of possession battle? Because I think when you're going to look at the nitty-gritty in this game, that's what it's going to come down to. So type R for Raiders or type S for Steelers. Who's going to win the time of possession battle, okay? Because for me, I really want to say R, guys. I really do, but I think the Steelers just have such a tough offense, and they're going to rack up a little bit more first down. So I will still type my S for Steelers, but I'm hoping that the Raiders rack up time possession and ultimately look pretty good doing so. Speaking of looking good, I think I look pretty good right now, and it's because I'm wearing some Miz and a Main. And if you guys want to look as good as me, go to comfortable.af. And I get asked all the time, Mitch, why is the website comfortable.af? Guys, I'm telling you, these are the most comfortable dress shirts you will ever wear. Comfortable.af. Shout out to Miz and Main for making me look good and feel good. Next key to the game here, it's we got to finish drives. Like at the end of the day, when you're going up against a high-powered offense, you're going up against really any team in the NFL. We need touchdowns and we don't need field goals. 7 is more than 3. Yes, you're getting a math lesson here on the Raiders Report. So I want to know from you, are the Raiders going to score more touchdowns or more field goals in this Week 14 game? If you type 7 for touchdowns, that's what I'm hoping for. If you type 3 for field goals, you might as well also type an L, because the Raiders, if they're kicking field goals against the Steelers, L, guaranteed. Next key to the game, let's feed Jalen Richard. Yeah, I want to feed Jalen Richard the football a little bit more. 6 carries, as my voice awfully squeaks, for 95 yards last week. He looked unbelievable. Sure, he fumbled, but can we get this guy the football a little bit more? Doug Martin's been good. He's been good, but he hasn't been Jalen Richard good. Like, he's the best pass-catching running back on the team. And the last time Richard had 11 carries, the Raiders won. He had 11 carries for 60 yards. I'm sick and tired of hearing Jalen Richard can't carry the load. He's got 36 carries, 214 yards. That's 5.9 yards per carry. And he leads the team in receptions, 56 catches, 478 yards. Let's get the ball into the hands of one of the best playmakers on our team right now, because I'm sick and tired of seeing Doug Martin, who's an average running back, play over Jalen Richard, who's just clearly shown to be a better fit in this offense, a better fit with Derek Carr. So, as I'm going to try to calm down here a little bit before I come back on screen, who is the best running back on the Raiders? I want to know from you. I want you guys to comment below. You can probably guess who I think is the best running back on the Raiders, but this show isn't just about me. So, guys, please let me know who's the best running back on the Raiders. Let's take a look now at that Week 14 matchup one more time. And the game is at Sunday at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you to Landon for correcting that. And the Steelers are favored by 10.5 points. Like I said before, I think the Raiders are actually going to cover this one, being at home. They played pretty well against the Chiefs last week. Over under at 51.5. I think it's going to be definitely over in that. So, We got to predict the score. Raiders versus the Steelers. And remember, the only way you're going to qualify for this is if you DM me on Twitter, okay? DM me on Twitter at MitchellRens365. The first person to give me the right score, you're going to win $25 out of my back pocket. But you guys know that I don't wear pants. All right, let's look ahead now to week 14 to 17 because this game, or this is what I really wanted to like harp on. The Raiders are sitting there with the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft. And if we win another game, the chances of us getting the number 1 overall pick and Nick Bosa, probably pretty slim. Week 14 against the Steelers, I think they're going to end up losing that game. Even though the Bengals right now look like the worst team in the NFL, especially that defense, going into Cincinnati is going to be a tough game. The Broncos all of a sudden are playing not like donkeys, but they're playing a lot better. I think that's going to be a loss. And then at Kansas City, the only way that they win this game is if the Chiefs bench their entire team and bench the entire second team, and if Andy Reid's out there playing quarterback. So, I want to know from you. I just showed you the Raiders' last 4 games. So, how many games are the Raiders going to win this season? They already have 2. I'm probably going to stick with 2. And it's okay because they can't make the playoffs. They're literally already out of contention for that. Let's move on to 2019. Let's get a better draft pick. I'm hoping my fingers are crossed for Nick Bosa. Raider Nation, I want to say thanks so much for tuning in to the Raiders Report. Follow me on Twitter at MitchellRens365, and I'm going to be back Sunday after Raiders and Steelers, and hopefully a Raiders win. So until then, go Raiders.